All right, everyone. I have a very special guest here today, and I'm very excited for this conversation because selfishly, I also want to know a lot about hair and hair loss, especially as we continue to get older. And so I have Lisa West here with me today. Welcome, Lisa.
Well, thank you very much.
Yes, nice to meet you. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so my background is a hairdresser. I've been a hairdresser for over 40 years. And then the last few years, I've trained as a trichologist. So I help people with hair thinning, hair loss, and scalp problems.
Okay. So you just evolved into that as a hairdresser. Did you start to see a lot of clients like losing hair and you were just like, I need to figure this out?
Absolutely. As my client base grew older with myself, more and more people were asking me about hair loss. And to be truthful, I am an educator as well. And there's very little training for hairdressers in hair loss.
Yeah.
So I started out by training, first of all, in offering hair integration systems for clients, which is kind of like a follow on from hair extensions. And they were great. It actually covers the top of their head where you can't traditionally use normal hair extensions. But I soon realised there's quite a few problems with using these types of solutions. They're amazing and they're great for people that have got permanent hair loss, but they don't help people that could maybe help with their own hair loss. It's kind of like putting a band-aid over the top of something. So you kind of just a cosmetic cover up, but you're not really getting to the root cause of what's causing the hair loss in the first place.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
so then I decided to retrain in trichology, which is the study of the hair and the scalp.
Okay, very cool. I'm excited for this. In your experience, what are some of the biggest myths or misconceptions about women's hair loss that you see day in and day out, especially like social media? I personally get fed so many things about hair. It's so overwhelming, and they all look like they work on social media until you bring them into your home. But what are the things that you see that women maybe do or are trying that are things that they maybe should avoid or are a waste of money or just things that aren't truthful?
It's awful, isn't it? There's so many myths, really. I think a lot of people think that hair loss is a cosmetic issue, and it's really not. It often is a reflection of what's happening inside the body. Unfortunately, our hair is one of the fastest growing cells in the human body, but it's not prioritized because we can all live without our hair.
Mhm.
And also, the other thing is there's lots of different hair loss conditions. So one of the first places we need to start is looking to see what type of condition of hair loss you have. Alopecia itself is just an umbrella term, but there's lots of different types of hair loss that can occur. So some are genetic. We all recognise male pattern hair loss, for instance, and there is a female version as well, which can be very much linked to genetics. But there's lots of other types of hair loss as well, like telogen effluvium, which is like a hair shedding, and lots of women, particularly in perimenopause years, go through that type of hair loss as well.
Okay. So what would you say in your experience, how many people are not maybe how many or percentage are genetic versus the other types of hair loss that we tend to see?
Um, Probably in my clinic, I probably see even, and you can actually even have both. You can have both types of hair loss together as well. So you can have more than one type of hair loss at the
Okay.
same time. So telogen effluvium, it's very common to have that alongside alopecia areata or female pattern hair loss as well. So
How do you determine what the source of their hair loss is?
so we do a really detailed consultation first of all. And then it's really looking, we use a trichoscope to look very closely at the scalp as well, quite often. If I see people in clinic. If I don't see people in clinic, because I can do online consultations as well via Zoom and everything. So then it's just really describing the type of hair loss and looking at the type of hair loss, really. So So one of the ways I could tell if you had telogen effluvium, for instance, is if you've noticed you're getting lots of hair shedding, you're finding hair in your brush, hair in your shower when you wash your hair, you put your hair up in a ponytail and it feels kind of half or quarter of the thickness that it used to. Generally tells us it's a type of telogen effluvium generally.
Okay. And then what do you usually see for like the root cause of that type of hair loss? Because my guess is that most of my audience, and also me, would be that probably type of hair loss. What do you usually find is like the root cause of that?
So many different root causes. It's like finding a needle in a haystack sometimes. So that's where the really detailed consultation comes in. And we look back actually over the past kind of 6 months to a year, all sorts of reasons. It can be due to hormones, it could be a trauma, could be stress. Nutrition plays a huge part. Yeah, lack of sleep, lifestyle, all sorts of things.
All this stuff. Yes.
Absolutely.
How much of hair loss do you feel like is tied to perimenopause and hormone changes, or how often do you see that? And what do you think women can do? Because much of my audience is women who are in the perimenopause hormonal shifting phase of their life. What can they do on their own from this episode, or something that they can start to do or think about differently as they enter this phase of their life and they're noticing that hair loss with hormonal changes?
I would say that something that everyone can do is make sure they're eating really well. That's the first starting point for me. I always try. I've got my own Facebook group, and on there I've put on daily Thrive steps. And the Thrive steps really are all based around what I call the foundations and making sure you're eating really well. So generally, as women get older, we need a little bit more protein. Protein is really important because our hair's actually made out of protein. So one of the first things I always recommend is make sure you're having protein for every meal. Also, lots of vegetables and fibre. We need to make sure we're getting all those different vitamins and minerals. So ditch the processed food as much as possible. I think nowadays our food landscape is so different to how it was sort of 30, 40, 50 years ago. And I think we need to be more mindful of it. So that's kind of the starting point. Obviously, hormones and everything, it's all a roller coaster at this time of our lives. So if you can support the hormones with nutrition, then that's amazing. But obviously, stress comes into everything. So does sleep. So it's kind of trying to get all those lifestyle things in place. Try to reduce stress, try to make sure you're getting enough sleep. We quite often will use blood tests to check out certain vitamins like vitamin D, B12, folate, ferritin's really important as well. And thyroid health has a huge impact on hair as well. So I'm
Yeah,
sure
those
it's
are
things you hear about all the time, and you know, talking to your audience about constantly as well.
Yes, those are all the tests that I usually see come back, and it's all low and, imbalanced and things like that. And yeah, and your hair is a reflection of, what's going on internally with you as well. We think it's, yeah, like you said, it's just a cosmetic thing and we just want to look better. Well, if you want to look better, you also have to think about what are you doing day in and day out to make sure your hair's able to grow hair.
Absolutely. Your hair's never prioritized by the body. So we can all live without our hair.
Yeah.
So the body will always make sure it's looking after all the internal organs that are going to keep us alive, prioritize that over our hair. So I like to think the hair's like the barometer of your health.
Absolutely. Yeah. I noticed, and I'm sure you know this as working with women in hair loss, is that when we got COVID for that first time, is how much hair, I couldn't believe how much hair I lost after that. I got to the point where I was like, I don't think it's going to stop. It did.
Yeah.
But I will say it never went back to how it was, like restoring how much hair I had before versus what I have now. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a shame, isn't it? I mean, if you work really hard, it's taken me years, but my hair is getting back to how it was before, but it's probably taken me 5 years. So
Yeah.
and
What's your
I'm coming out the other side of, I've gone through menopause now. So
Okay. Okay. And your hair is coming back is better post-menopause, do you feel like?
It's getting
It
there
is.
now. I've
Okay.
personally got a thyroid problem as well. So I've got
Oh,
Hashimoto's. So I think a lot of my hair loss was caused due to my thyroid. I seem to be kind of managing that better now. So my
okay.
hair certainly feels a lot better than it was a few years ago.
Oh, good. Good for you. What would you say? We talked about protein and fiber. Do you feel like there are any other nutrients that women are looking over that they should be taking in? One of the things that you hear online or you read online is biotin. But are there any other, what is your take on that? And then are there other nutrients that we should be prioritizing for our hair health?
Biotin's a really interesting one. It's basically there's very few of us in the Western world that are deficient in biotin. If you're eating a good diet, it's generally we're getting plenty of it. So it's really a big marketing ploy. Very rarely do I ever see anybody deficient in biotin. But there was that, interestingly enough, there was a study done, some research done, and there is a hair condition called, I can't remember the proper term, but it's kind of like uncombable hair that is seen in some children. And the biotins come from that because they've used that for the children and it's actually helped their hair. So that's quite interesting. That's some research that I've read. But yeah, biotin's rarely a big problem. So
Okay. Good to
the
know.
hair does need it. The hair does need biotin, but it's rarely a big problem in the Western world.
Yeah, it's probably more of a lack of high quality foods and protein in
Absolutely.
their diet.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, definitely. I think from my own point of view as well, I was quite surprised with vitamin D, because obviously vitamin D comes from the sun, and so many more of us nowadays don't spend time outdoors actually getting some sun on our actual skin because we cover up so much and everything. But actually, got vitamin D receptors in our hair follicles. So it's really, really important to help our hair grow.
Yeah, I didn't know that. That's very
Mm.
interesting. And
Yeah.
actually, I've been noticing more shedding lately, and I did stop my vitamin D because I tend to think I'm in the sun more, but honestly, the weather here has been rubbish, and we've had like very minimal sun in the last 3 weeks. So I wonder if I need to bring it back in.
I think the trouble with vitamin D is it is a fat soluble vitamin, so we do store it in our bodies. And so I think you've got to be a little bit careful. You don't want to have too much of it, so it becomes toxic. So it's kind of it's one of those vitamins that's really, really important, but I don't want everybody to just go out there and just start cramming the vitamin D in.
Yeah.
You kind of need to check your levels and everything.
Yes, yes. And just so my audience knows, if you're listening, hospitals in this area or clinics, you can actually just go in and have your vitamin D drawn. You don't need a doctor's order anymore. So
Really, that's
yeah,
amazing. We don't
yeah.
have anything like that in the UK.
Yeah, there's not much here that's great for as far as Western medicine, but at least the hospitals around here I've noticed have started to allow you to come in and have some labs drawn without a doctor's order, and then it pops into your chart. So you can always do that. You likely also hear a lot of the emotions that come with losing your hair as a female. So for the women who maybe feel embarrassed, angry, ashamed, having those like low vibration emotions about their hair, what do you want her to know, or how do you work with those clients?
First of all, it's not her fault. It's quite a lonely time when you're sort of feeling like that. You feel like nobody's around who really understands. And it's really, really emotional losing your hair. So I just want you to really realize that there is that help out there. Go and, as soon as possible, go and seek help from a trichologist who really knows about the hair and scalp so that they can help you. Seeking help sooner rather than later is always a good thing because there are, like I said earlier, there's lots of different types of hair loss, and some of the types of hair loss are cicatricial. So they're basically scarring types of hair loss, and once the scarring starts occurring, the hair follicles are completely dead and there's nothing you can do about them. So seek help sooner rather than later. There's lots of support groups and things like that as well. So
Okay, that's super interesting. What, like you've talked a little bit about scalp, and a lot of us think when my hair is falling out, like I have a hair issue. And we also talked about your nutrients. Are there some scalp things that you see or things that that we're doing at home that make our scalp unhealthy?
Yeah, sometimes I've seen a big increase actually in people oiling their scalps a lot more, thinking that it's going to be a really good thing. Sometimes we've all got our own like scalp microbiome. Like we have one in our stomachs, we've got one all over our skin, and there's one in our hair. And when that microbiome gets out of kilter, we've got like a natural fungi on there that's called Malacia. I don't think I've actually said that properly, but and it's if it gets out of kilter, it can actually create some scalp conditions like seborrheic dermatitis, which is quite uncomfortable. It can look very much like dandruff, but big white flakes or yellowy flakes. And sometimes that can start kind of lying over the hair follicles. So it can kind of create some inflammatory conditions that can even sort of start harming the hair and creating a little bit of hair thinning as well. It's quite normal to see conditions like that alongside conditions like telogen effluvium as well.
Okay. Would that be like somebody putting like castor oil on their hair?
Yes, sometimes, yeah. I've seen a client with, she was trying lots of different hair oils, hoping that it would help her hair grow.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
It's really created this imbalance on her scalp. So where the
Mhm.
pH balance has just got out of kilter, really.
Okay.
So,
What kinds of labs or assessments do you do in your practice? Like, do you do like a hair tissue analysis? Do you do blood work, or how do you decide what lab somebody needs when they're having hair loss?
okay, so I'm part of a group of trichologists in the UK called Root Cause Clinical, and through them we have got some labs tests we can do. So, like I said, if we see people in clinic, then we use this little trichoscope, so it magnifies and we can look really closely at the scalp, which is really good because then we can see if there's any scalp issues. And we do that in clinic, and then we also can offer blood tests. So we can either read blood tests that have been done through doctors or GPs because they look at blood tests in maybe a different way than trichologists will do, because we're looking for them to be ultimate for hair growth, whereas a GP or doctor might just look for them to be within range. So if they're on the lower side, like I said, they're great for the body. The doctors are happy, the body's working okay, but maybe not optimal for hair growth as well. So there's certain ranges we look at for certain blood tests. And we also, for some types of hair loss, we also offer now genetic testing, which is really, really interesting because I've only just started training in all of this and just getting involved, but it's fascinating because it looks at how we all metabolize different pharmaceutical products and which ones are most likely to be successful and work on your type of hair loss if we need to go down the pharmaceutical route. So it's really exciting to kind of get involved in all of this.
Yeah, that is super interesting. It also helps with so much clarity and wasting time and money on things that may not ever work for, like, usually are things that work, but may not work for you. And just gives them that clarity on that. Speaking of pharmaceuticals, are there any pharmaceuticals that you love more than others for other people's knowledge?
Um, One of probably one of the most successful ones is minoxidil. Over in the UK, we call it Regain. I think over in the US, you call it Rogaine.
I see both. I see a lot more. I've been getting ads actually for minoxidil. That it's just like a regular old prescription you can get now from a doctor, but in like a pill form.
Okay, so you can have it orally. You can also have it topically, where you can
Yeah.
apply it to the scalp and the hair loss. That's the only one that's regulated in the UK, really, for like female pattern hair loss and that type of hair loss, really. We do use it sometimes for telogen effluvium. And it's basically a vasodilator, so it increases the blood supply to the hair follicles.
So that one can be used for both genetic hair loss and hair loss because of hormones and stress. It works for both of those.
It may work for both. I'd
Okay.
say about 50%.
Oh, okay.
This is where the genetic testing comes in, because with the genetic test, we can see if it's likely to work for you or not. And if it's not ultra successful, there's other options as well that we can get from our pharmacy.
Okay, good to know. What do you see are most common mistakes women make initially when they're trying to fix hair loss on their own? When they start to notice my hair's falling out more, my ponytail is like half the amount that it used to be, and she goes out and she does something, and you're like, don't do that. What is that thing?
I think it's just chasing quick fixes, really. Hair grows quite slowly, so on average about half an inch a month. So if you read somewhere that somebody's hair's come back, I've been using this shampoo for 2 weeks and my hair's back to normal, it's probably not quite true. The interesting thing with telogen effluvium actually is it can correct itself. It's basically just a premature hair shedding. It's affected the hair growth cycle. And once you've kind of got to the bottom of what the problem was, or it could be something, as you said earlier, like COVID, where the COVID infection, you probably had a high temperature and that could have created the excess hair shedding at the time. If it's some sort of illness or shock to the body, quite often you don't see the hair falling out for about 3 months afterwards, all due to the hair growth cycle. But sometimes, like I said, it can correct itself. So I think that's where a lot of these myths come from, particularly with shampoos and things like that. I'm not saying that shampoos are not worth it. They do have some, good elements. They do stimulate the blood supply to the scalp in certain cases. They do help to reduce inflammation in the scalp. But generally, hair loss is going on from the inside. So it's rare for a shampoo to be able to kind of just deal with that on its own. So
Okay, and good to know. I have another question. When you're losing hair in specific areas on your scalp, is it true that it's coming from certain ailments inside the body? Like when you lose hair in the corners of your scalp here, I always hear that it's a thyroid issue. Is that true?
I've never heard anything to back that up completely.
Oh,
There is a really good trichologist in the US actually, that he has 3 areas that he says are related. I think the top he says is related to genetics. The sides are, I think I'm right in saying the sides are hormones and the back's nutrition. It could be the other way around. It's very interesting, but I haven't found any real research to completely back that up at the moment.
yeah. Okay, good to know. And what would you define success as when it comes to healing hair loss, and what should women realistically expect, especially after the woman after 35?
Yeah, like I said, don't just because you're over 35, don't think it's just down to genetics and your hair's getting thinner and you've got to put up with it, because it's not always the case. I think it differs for everybody. If obviously we can bring back your hair and restore it, then that's amazing. If we can just stop it getting any worse, then that can be enough. And particularly if it is the start of like a cicatricial alopecia or female pattern hair loss, even if we can just stop it developing any further, then again we can look at that as a success as well.
Okay, very good. Well, that was a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much for being here today. Can you tell everyone where they can find you, and how they can reach out to you?
Yes, of course. Like I said, I have a Facebook group and where I give daily Thrive steps for people to help people. That's Synergy Hair Loss Support and Solutions on Facebook. On Facebook I'm Synergy Trichology, and on Instagram I am as well. So
Okay, awesome. We will put that in the show notes as well, so anybody can click to find those things, and anybody can join the Facebook group. It's a free Facebook group.
absolutely, it's free.
Okay.
Everyone's welcome.
Perfect. Awesome. We'll put that in the show notes. All right. Well, thank you so much for being here today.
No problem. Thank you very much for inviting me. Lovely to meet you.
Lovely to meet you.